And hello again from WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. My name's Josh Manning. I am Deputy Managing Editor for assignment here at the Western Journal. Joining me today, on my left, Michael Austin, features writer, reporter extraordinaire.
Yes.
For the Western Journal. And on my right is Brett, whose last name I now can't remember.
Kershaw.
That's it. I knew it. I knew it. Like the knife brand.
A little
like
suspense there.
So here's the deal. Brett was an intern here, and we worked together for a while, and then he vanished, working for other departments, and he's back now. And I'm terrible with names anyway, so he knows I love him. Just temporarily forgot.
Yeah.
That's actually one of the few things I worry about with this is that I will forget somebody's first name who I have worked with for a long time, because it has almost happened before. And I'm super absent-minded, and all the drug years didn't help with that.
Well, George, I think we'll be just fine.
Thank you, Marv.
Yeah.
All right, we've got a busy show for you today. Today's kind of a weird news day. If you are watching the news, if you are browsing online, if you're checking out westernjournal.com, the president's trying to keep things kind of low key. Kamala's licking her wounds, trying not to make any noise. It's been a quiet news day. We have three, I think, really cool stories for you today. Two of them are really interesting and based on actually kind of some old historic things that tie into Fauci and that also tie into Biden and Kamala. We've got some old video we want to show you. And then I've got a piece I want to share with you that's debunks an absolutely enormous lie that took place the last year of Trump's presidency. It was a lie the media ran with. They absolutely loved it. Turns out the bottom has fallen. Again, like so many narratives the media pushed about Trump right at the end, the bottom has fallen out of it. Yeah. And so we're going to get to that. But first, I want to toss it over to Michael. He is going to talk about some old Fauci footage we have unearthed. This footage is, I think it was it 18 years old? Something like that. It's almost 20 years old. And it's Fauci. It's somebody who was essentially a prophet. They told us the truth about Fauci 18 years ago. Take it away, Michael.
Yeah, and so now we all want Fauci to be gone. We want him out of here. You know, we saw that email leak last week that came out because of the Freedom of Information Act. Fauci told people that masks don't work while he was telling us that they do work, and he's gone back and forth a million times. You know, the email suggested that he knew that the origin of the coronavirus probably was that Wuhan laboratory. Fauci is horrible at his job. There is no doubt in it. And as it turns out, this isn't a new thing. For several decades, people have known that Fauci is horrible at his job, and recently, an interview from 18 years ago popped up where a physician phoned in and basically told Fauci, you should probably resign because you're so bad at your job. And we have the clip of that interview, and we're going to play it for you guys. It is a treat to watch.
We hear from a physician in Durham, North Carolina. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Dr. Fauci.
Good morning.
And, Pedro. You've been at the NIH a pretty long time, and it seems to me that during your tenure, our ability to control infectious diseases hasn't improved, but in fact worsened. And even basic health tips such as you can't use antibiotics to treat viral infections has not been adequately communicated to the public because, for instance, people will come in demanding an antibiotic for a common cold, or any other viral infection, which has certainly served to create more resistant strains. Not saying that this has anything to do with this particular SARS epidemic, but don't you think it's time that you step down and let someone else who has a more effective message?
Actually, no. She wants to know if I want to step down because we're getting too many resistance.
Yeah, real funny. Fauci doesn't know how to do his job. He didn't know how to do his job before, and it's amazing that he has continued to garner so much political favor, so much political power, so much, the left, the mainstream left has given him so much leeway. Why do you guys think that is? He's been failing at these, and it's not just with the SARS epidemic and with these some of these other incidents, there are examples of Fauci screwing up throughout his history.
Because government work is the best work. It's the best. You get in there, you can't be fired. It takes years.
Yeah.
There was a story, gosh, this was 5 years ago, if not farther back. It was an FBI or a CIA agent who I think had slept on the job for something like 5 years, like literally would go in, go to sleep at his desk, get up, go to lunch, come back, go to sleep at his desk, get up, go home, and do whatever he did. And he did it for like 10 years.
Yeah.
Pension.
It was probably got a great pension at the end of it. Yeah, an inflation pegged index.
Yeah.
An inflation pegged pension that none of the rest of us have, index pension. Government work is great work, and Fauci pulls in 400,000 plus per year. He's either the top paid or one of the top 3 paid federal employees. Makes more than the president. Once you get into the beast, once the beast assimilates you, you're pretty safe. It takes a whole lot to get you out of there. And why would he leave? Why would there be any motivation for him to leave?
And
when we pay him that much.
And there's a big difference between what Fauci does and like what a normal job would be. Because in a normal job, if you do a good job, if you make your company money, you'll keep your job. If you don't do those things, you get fired. But in the government,
or if you oversee the deaths of 500,000 people in the private industry, you get fired.
He's not bad at his job. He's actually quite good at his job, because his job within the government is to be wasteful, to take the taxpayer money. So, I mean, what he's doing is...
He is an optimal government employee. He gets paid lots of money and screws over the American people.
These are the
he is
requirements
par
of the position.
excellence.
Yeah.
That's why he's the top paid dude. He is the best at screwing over the American people and getting paid a lot to do it.
And like Michael, you've said, his tenure goes back to the 80s. And he's mismanaged, I think, 3 or 4 epidemics. And I feel like if it's an epidemic or pandemic, those are things you don't mishandle. Like maybe not predicting the flu or not predicting how the rates of the common cold. Those things, I think, from the head of the NIH, those are excusable. Mishandling a pandemic, on the other hand, seems to be one of those, that is your 3 strikes. That's not 1 strike.
Yeah.
So from the perspective of a government employee, I think he's doing his job quite well.
And I think one of the reasons that
Employee of the year
that he maintains all this favor and all this power is that if the left were to admit that the government isn't good at doing its job, that Fauci, he's the head of this, not the head of this agency, but he's, a big figure in the public health agency of public health coalition in the government.
De facto head.
Yeah. And, if he sucks at his job, that essentially means that the government can't do its job.
Admission that they're not perfect.
Yeah.
That they don't have the answers. They can't say, "Hi, I'm from the government. I'm here to help you." if he is a fraud.
And with his sort of decline that we've seen over the course of the pandemic, it's been clearer and clearer and clearer that he has no idea what he's talking about. He flip-flops back and forth like a million times on every major issue. It's pretty clear that the public health agencies in the government are, they're corrupted.
Yes.
And how
I think he knows more than I do, at least, about
of course
deadly diseases, the flu. Like I would give him the scientific authority to a certain respect. So what I think is definitely Fauci's biggest problem is we've seen for the past year now that he is just purely open to being corrupted and tossed around like a football. It doesn't matter whichever way the wind blows, he's okay.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, is it Fauci or is it somebody else driving it?
right.
So and it's like in my mind, you have the like you mentioned the issue with the masks early on, us telling us not to wear masks or buy masks.
Yes.
But actually, like they were saying,
They were telling each other, yes.
Exactly.
It's so complicated. So he told the public at first that masks don't work. But he said later that he was lying because he wanted more of the the health agencies to have it, for doctors to have more masks available. Then he said, no, actually they do work, so take them. And then it turns out in an email that he was actually saying, no, they actually don't work. So,
but what does work is 2 masks. 2 masks. I saw a fantastic meme before we came on the air saying if you wear 2 bathing suits, you can go to the bathroom in the pool and it doesn't matter. It's It's just unbelievable the way the guy has shifted with the wind.
Yes.
Now, I thought one of the things that was interesting that the caller pointed out was handling of other pandemics, and it reminded me of a point made by the late great Rush Limbaugh. Where do these pandemics come from? They come from China.
yeah.
They come from China. And the point Rush would always shift to after that was that leftism is not kind, it is not friendly, it is not loving. Leftism is unbelievably destructive and creates breeding grounds for this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where was the last first world liberal democratic country that a pandemic began in? Where as far as I know, there's no example of that in modern time. The problem is that you've got people living under a communist regime that just keeps them unbelievably poor. They have gotten richer, but they're still unbelievably poor compared to us. I spent 2 weeks in China and saw it. You want to see something remarkable? Go over there and watch the way they use human beings. We have machines to do all sorts of things here. We have street sweepers and that sort of thing.
Right.
They just have armies of people with I'm not joking, a stick with a bunch of palm leaves tied to it, sweeping all the streets. They just use people for whatever. And out of those environments grow these really terrible, terrifying diseases, and then they spread.
And, we have this big government, this corrupt system where, people like Fauci, organizations like the NIH, they get in bed with China, they start working with China, and as it turns out, we helped fund the very institute that probably created this virus.
Yes, and then
Fauci's directly linked to all of that.
Yeah, and then the left acts so holier than thou about money. Good gracious, we've got everybody. Profit motive is evil. We've got to get money out of politics. And then what are they doing? They are bending over backward to get money from China for Hollywood, for sports. They want to line their pockets with communist dollars.
Yeah,
want to line their pockets, but it's perfectly fine with them to outsource jobs that fly over country that heartland Americans counted on. They have no problem doing that. It is truly perverse.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Brett?
He hit it. No,
he hit it.
Hey, all right.
He hit it.
Good
And
for me.
what really helps Fauci is that he has the establishment media to help cover for him all the time. The same establishment media that would go to any length to make Trump look like the most horrible person.
Yeah, so we've known that the establishment media was in trouble. It began before. Oh, good gracious! The most famous newscaster in history who watched us land people on the moon, and I cannot think of his name. Thank you, Walter Cronkite.
Yeah.
Thank you. Brett, I couldn't think of Brett's last name. I can't think of Walter Cronkite's last name.
Yeah, let's make you feel better, right?
Thank you, Walter. Thank you. Cronkite essentially lost Vietnam for us because the left got in his head.
Right.
And I think that's where the core of American journalism, maybe not the core, where we began to really see American journalism eroding. But if there were any doubt left, the way the modern media has covered Fauci and the masks and back and forth, throwing things in memory holes. And no, we've always been at war with East Asia. No, we've always been at war with Eurasia. The COVID stuff has confirmed that. But you're right. We saw an enormous amount of this with the Trump administration as well. And so yet another lie has fallen. You remember how there were bounties? Oh, my gracious. The Russians put out bounties on American soldiers. They released that little chestnut right before the election. Turns out that was completely false.
Yep.
We have another one here. Remember General Flynn? He was... he had betrayed America. He was working for the other guys. Turns out the FBI was tricking him into saying things that he didn't even want to say.
Yeah.
Who was the one who was they said was working for Russia, but was actually it wasn't Papadopoulos, but was actually informing the FBI on Russian.
I don't remember that one.
Russian assets. Carter Page.
Oh, yep.
Carter
There you
Page.
go. Yep.
So, I mean, all of these things are just massive manufactured lies. Well, we have another one, and this was a particularly disgusting, vicious lie. If you remember, in the midst of the race chaos of 2020, we had mobs out all over the place, burning things, attacking people, hunting for Andy No, trying to kill him, taking over Portland, creating their own autonomous zones. Well, in the midst of this, there were protests in Lafayette Park. Lafayette Park is just north of the White House. And if you remember, Trump showed up there later and there was a very famous photo of Trump holding a Bible in Lafayette Park. Now, the left picked up on it was two things that they absolutely hate: Trump and the Bible.
Yes.
I mean, it was an orgy of hatred going on there. So the narrative became Donald Trump had the protesters cleared out of there. He sent in the military. He sent in soldiers. He sent in jackbooted thugs.
Yeah.
Let me read to you from a piece on the Western Journal today about this incident. On June 1st, 2020, a group of, quote, protesters in Lafayette Park, just north of the White House, were cleared by law enforcement officers from various agencies. Shortly after the clearing, then President Donald Trump passed through the square in order to conduct a photo shoot at St. John's Episcopal Church. The establishment media's narrative surrounding the incident was damning. The majority of left-leaning outlets painted the situation as follows: Trump sent out a gang of jackbooted thugs to tear gas innocent protesters demonstrating outside the White House so that he could walk across the street for a photo op. The New York Times communicated as much with its headline reading, "Protesters dispersed with tear gas so Trump could pose at church." Further quoting, "People who gathered outside the White House to protest police brutality spent Monday waving signs and screaming for justice. They watched as police officers and National Guard units flooded Lafayette Square, delivering on a threat made by President Trump. And just before the city's 7 p.m. curfew went into effect, they were hit with flashbang explosions and doused with tear gas," the outlet reported. Turns out that narrative was completely false. A newly released government report found that Trump's visit to the church had absolutely nothing to do with law enforcement officers' decisions to clear the area. Imagine that. The evidence we obtained did not support a finding that the USPP cleared the park to allow the president to survey the damage and walk to St. John's Church, the report said, according to USA Today. In fact, the report found that the USPP, the agency overseeing Lafayette Square, had already planned to clear the park hours before learning of Trump's intention to visit, so says The Hill. This is a spectacular example. At some point, you can't say the press is failing anymore. At some point, you have to say it's deliberate, it's intentional. You give grace to people until it's just clear that they're not incompetent, they're actually malicious. What do you guys make of this?
It's hard to be surprised anymore, but it is truly spectacular to how wrong they were on this. And it's nice how tied up in a neat little bow this is, that we get to see exactly, no, they were planning on doing it hours before Trump had even learned of it. And, that was horribly written. I don't know who wrote that.
By the way, that piece was written by our own Michael Austin.
Michael Kershaw, yeah.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. And folks, all it would have taken...
Yeah.
This was a New York Times headline. All they have to do, pick up the phone, call USPP, and say, hey, what were the plans with Lafayette Park today? Mm-hmm. So either they did that and got the answer they didn't want, so they just didn't report it and they lied, or they were unbelievably negligent and just created the narrative themselves.
Yeah, and I remember looking at social media posts, like looking at, all the social media posts that I'm a part of and all my friends and people that I've known in past in my life in the past, and they all jumped on that story. And it's not just the media. The media says their narrative, and then all of the mindless drones on social media that just follow everything they say, they keep putting it out like, oh, what a horrible person. He's trying to look like a fake Christian while, taking out all these peaceful protesters, which, by the way, they were rioting and they were destroying Lafayette Square. Those were not peaceful protesters.
The purpose was to defend. It was the whole purpose of actually fixing the fence. was because people
Right.
had broken the fence in the first place.
Right.
Oh, that's
and
a great point. They were
yeah.
closing it down to repair rioter damage.
Yeah, so the rioters had destroyed fencing in the area, and the reason they were getting cleared out is because they wanted to rebuild that fencing. So,
So
yeah.
with each fabrication, with each lie, at least in my mind, this may seem like crazy words, but the corporate press is becoming the enemy of the people in general in my world.
Those
aren't crazy.
Those aren't
Yeah,
crazy
yeah, those are
words.
not
Yeah.
crazy
Those were
words.
crazy words, I think, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, so
I
when we have the Russian story, to me, the Russian story is one of the most insane fabrications.
Yeah.
And how long and how extensive it was within
Right.
either the media or just the popular culture. And we're having, a president is allowing American soldiers to die at the hands of these Kremlin officials. You're like, it just seems too good to be true for these corporate outlets.
But
And
yeah.
the problem, if I may,
Yeah, go ahead.
Just what I'm noticing, I guess, is the idea that we can now manufacture ideas, manufacture
Right.
events that we have access to. We can see, we can watch, and that's what's the scariest thing is that we can watch this whole event unfold right in front of us, yet
You didn't see it.
exactly.
You didn't see.
You didn't see what you thought you said.
Just think about how regular it is to have these stories get things so wrong. We had, the Russia stuff. We had Lafayette Square. We had the Hunter Biden laptop story. They said that was fake news, that none of that was true. Turns out to be 100% true. It's just, the Capitol incursion, all those people that supposedly died at the Capitol. Turns out it was
yeah, and remember all the armed ones. Remember all the armed ones.
Yeah.
I think it's I don't want to say the wrong outlet. There was some outlet summing up the Capitol Hill incursion, and they talked about the weaponry that was used, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. There were people there with flagpoles.
Yeah.
They were going to use flagpoles.
They're armed with flagpoles.
They were going to use. All right, we're going to overturn the government of the most powerful world in the country that has tactical nuclear weapons. What are we going to use?
Yeah.
Flagpoles. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But Brett, what you said rings so true. They show you see something, and then they just look at you dead in the eye.
Yeah.
You're wrong.
And say, you
Yeah.
didn't see that. You did not see that. That was what the Ministry of Truth in 1984 did. That was what they did. We've always been at war with East Asia.
Yeah.
The thing you saw is not what you saw.
And the amount of power you have if you control the channels of information. We don't have to be reminded what can happen, and we don't want to fearmonger. We don't want to scare people, but it's important to note that there are people that are actively looking to misinform you, or at least work you in bad faith. They're not trying to engage with you on this, and it's frustrating in some light, but also it is terrifying to notice that, like you said, the mindless drones. How many people this information will get to?
Yes.
And this information will be presumed as fake news, or oh no, you're just a partisan. You're like, no, what I'm saying has been fact checked.
Yeah.
The fact checkers actually disagree with this fact.
Yeah.
Which in that sentence makes no sense.
Yeah.
That's the world we live in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Oh, you're asking for things to make
Makes
sense.
sense.
That seems like an awfully tall bar, Brett. And by the way, Brett, if I'm not mistaken, you're not the president. You're not President Trump's biggest fan. I don't think.
No.
And so you've got a guy here he's not a huge Trump supporter, saying, "Look how outrageously the man was treated. Look, like Trump or hate him." Republicanism, free government, constitutionalism, liberal democracy, it can't function without a functioning press.
Yeah.
And we don't have one right now. Actually, that's a good time for a quick commercial for the Western Journal. If you do appreciate an outside look at news and politics and what's happening throughout the day, that is what we do. The Western Journal is interested in providing you with news and commentary from a Christian conservative perspective. And Brett was talking about how much power the people who control the channels of communication have.
Yeah.
And we are fighting back against that the best we can. But, they like to pull advertisers on us. They love to censor us. And old Zuckerberg, he could flip the switch on us anytime and
really
do an
can.
enormous amount of damage to us. So one way, if you believe in what we're doing, First off, thank you. Additionally, you can visit us at westernjournal.com/join. There are a couple ways you can team up with us. We're doing a Flag Day membership special, but you can support us and really help keep this channel independent and help us fight back against the liberal media, the leftist media. So now we've had our cool video from the past.
Yeah.
We've talked about a little bit of revisionist history from the media as far as Trump goes. Now, Brett has, this is maybe the coolest story of the day.
Yeah.
It deals with Gerald Ford and a really weird prediction he made.
Is Gerald Ford Nostradamus? It's the main question I have at the moment.
Yeah.
So if you guys have ever seen The Simpsons, there are moments within The Simpsons that they
Yes.
just make ludicrous predictions that 20, 30 years down the
They
line
keep end up
just
coming true.
happen.
Yeah.
And one of the best ones is Trump coming down the elevator, introducing that he's going to run for president. That
Yeah.
happened in The Simpsons. Very weird. So again, we have the video, so we'll show it in 1 minute. But essentially, former President Gerald Ford, I believe in 1989, is attending an event alongside with some school children.
Right.
In, I believe it's Iowa, at the Herbert Hoover Museum and Library. I'm sorry if I got the wrong state. Sorry, Herbert Hoover. Sorry, Iowa. Nonetheless, essentially, he is taking questions from the children, and this is the nice question a young girl had for him.
Mr. Ford, what advice would you give a young lady wanting to become President of the United States?
Well, I hope we do have a young lady at some point become President of the United States. I can tell you how I think it will happen, because it won't happen in the normal course of events. Either the Republican or Democrat political party will nominate a man for president and a woman for vice president. And the woman and man will win. So you'll end up with a president, a male, and a vice president, a female. And in that term of office of the president will die. And the woman will become president under the law or Constitution. And once that barrier is broken, from then on, men better be careful, because they'll have a hard time ever even getting a nomination in the future. But that's the way it's going to happen, and I think it'll probably come sometime in the next 4 or 8 years.
So, of course, two things to point out. One, I don't want to make this seem as me predicting Joe Biden is going to die.
Yeah.
That's not how I want to make this.
That's a good thing to point out.
I don't want to implicate Joe Biden's death in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Although if I were a betting man,
In addition to that, it's also extremely interesting that the current president, who often dodders and forgets some details, Gerald Ford, if I'm mistaken, was referred to by former President Lyndon Baines Johnson as someone who cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. So two doddering men, kind of complimenting one another, which is kind of interesting. But so if we take this and this does occur, President Kamala Harris will take the helm. In my view, President Kamala Harris is a much easier opponent in 2024 than I believe Joe Biden is, or in the field of Democrats. And my reasoning is this. She has no friends within her own caucus, within the inner Beltway DC establishment. She is championed. The leftists who I talk to do not like her.
Yes.
Libertarians, anybody on the right, anybody, if this is a political, anybody this way, not a fan of Miss Harris, Mrs. Harris. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that this may be a blessing to the GOP if she does happen to take over?
Well, she lost the nomination for a very good reason.
and massively lost it. This was not by a couple points, folks. This was the landslide.
Yeah, Joe Biden
crippling defeat.
Joe Biden is a bit of a doormat, and it's just hard to have any emotion towards him, and that's been one of his bigger strengths as of late. And Kamala Harris, on the other hand, is very easy to hate, and very easy to hate for progressives, conservatives, even establishment Democrats don't like some of the farther left positions she's taken. So, no, that would be a gift from on high to us if she were to become president.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. She comes across as unbelievably condescending and flippant.
Yes.
And flippant with the and you don't want to be overly personal with these things, but it is true. Optics means something.
Yes.
The cackling laugh, and she doesn't seem to me to be able to connect with an audience. I could be wrong. I've never been in the same room with her, so I don't know that.
She embodies a lot of the Hillary-isms.
I was thinking that Hillary is also so condescending and so arrogant. But yeah, I mean, exactly. We don't wish Joe Biden any ill at all.
No,
he is old. I mean, the chances of him dying in office increase every day.
Yeah.
That's true for anybody, but they're increasing a lot faster.
Yeah.
For him, he's at that point in the curve where it's really starting to go up each day. So yeah, I mean, God bless. I don't wish the man. I don't personally wish the man any ill at all.
Absolutely.
However, it probably would be a really good political scenario for conservatives. I mean, she would end. Now, that's kind of a funny thought, too, because you end up having Ford taking over from Nixon.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And being fairly unpopular and then things falling out from under him there. It would be interesting if he were the one who prophesied her ascension and then she kind of falls apart similar to the way he did. I like the idea, however, that, well, first off, when that video started, it looked to me like Gerald Ford had eaten a number of bad plums. He did not. Can you put the preview of that back on the screen for just a second? If you don't have it, it's okay. But I thought it was the funniest thing in the world. He looked so sour looking at a bunch of sweet little. Yeah, right there. Oh my gosh, the plums are not sitting well. And then I love that the message he essentially sends the little girl who says, "How can I be president one day?" Well, you can kill the president.
Game the system.
Yeah,
game the system.
Yeah, exactly. Game the system. You won't be elected on your own merit, sweetheart. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He
does give him an 8 to, I believe it's 4 to 8 years.
Yeah, which is a little off.
Yeah, and it really does look like he's about to approach some of the hardest hitting journalistic questions ever to come to him in front of a group of 9-year-olds.
But it's a good. I mean, it's a reasonable question, especially from a little girl. What a weird answer though. That would not be.
Yeah, that is really odd.
That would not be exactly what I would say. Well, Susie, you won't get it on your own. You got to hope the guy in front of you croaks. Yeah, I don't know, but interesting. So the stuff you find out there on slower news days is actually really neat. I thought the Lafayette Square thing was interesting. I thought the Fauci video was great. I think the Ford video is super interesting. So thank you guys for watching today. We appreciate it. We appreciate you tuning in every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We are here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern and 2 p.m. Pacific. As I said earlier in the show, we just so value your support, and just watching and just reading articles on westernjournal.com does an enormous amount to support us. If you feel led to support us more directly than that, you can go to westernjournal.com/join, westernjournal.com/join. And again, we are running a Flag Day special on memberships. Through those memberships, you can partner with us and actually fund journalism that matters. And folks, we're talking about creating young journalists who can take over long after you're gone, long after I'm gone, and keep carrying the torch and hopefully keep freedom alive for our kids and our grandkids. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to click subscribe. And then for just a second, I couldn't remember if it was subscribe or not. It is.
Yeah.
Click subscribe, and then off to the side, you'll see a little bell you can click on, as Michael is showing you right there. That bell's going to make sure that you get notified every time we go live. If you've heard of shadow banning, that's when people post things or go live and you don't get notified, click on that little bell. That'll make sure that we don't get shadow banned as far as you're concerned. Again, thank you for sticking with us today. It's always a pleasure visiting to you. We don't take it for visiting with you. We don't take it for granted. And we're looking forward to seeing you the same time Friday, where we'll wrap up the week together. For Brett, for Michael, for everybody at the Western Journal and WJ Live, I'm Josh Manning. Thanks. Have a great afternoon.
Josh, did you hear? They're putting the Libertarian back on the podcast.
No.
Oh? You didn't see the calendar?
No.
You should talk to Kayla about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, who's on the show Tuesday?
You and Joe.
Yeah. Like he's back.
Yeah, no. You and Joe.
The Libertarian?
Yeah, Libertarian Joe.
He's not back.
You should just go in the studio and check it out.
You're messing with me.
Okay.
Okay. Nice joke, Kayla. Got me to go to the studio. No!